Okay, so I've been promoting my FIRE checklist for a while, and I just want to make sure you guys know I'm not making any money from this. And I don't sell any courses like many YouTubers do, but I believe this is the complete formula that I'm going to continue to follow to achieve financial independence and retire early by age 45. And if you want to become financially independent, you need to learn to prioritize your personal finances. And when I started my YouTube channel last year, my purpose of creating content is to educate people on personal finances like budgeting, investing, and paying off their debt, and to tell you terrible dad jokes on that small whiteboard back there. In 2014, I was in $110,000 in personal loans, car loans, and credit card debt, and I cleaned up my mess and started learning about investing for financial independence in 2016. Now we have saved over 7 figures in assets, and we're saving over 65% of our gross income towards early retirement. We're consistently saving and investing to achieve F.I.R.E at $3.7 million so we can retire early at age 45. If you go to my website at firesidechat.com/contact, the only thing you have to fill out is your nickname, and it doesn't even have to be your real name. You put your email, your phone number is optional. Tell me what type of content you like to watch, and if you're interested in signing up for the free financial coaching session with me, the only reward that I get when you submit your information is that you get added to my newsletter subscription, and it's a weekly newsletter that's going to benefit you about financial education like this one from last week. And I would never spam you because I hate spam emails too. And it's 100% about building your financial knowledge in the stock market, money saving tips, and the overall economy. You're going to get free access to my Google Drive where you can download the spreadsheets I've been using for years to calculate your annual compound interest, F.I.R.E calculator, FAT-FIRE calculator, TSP calculator, and so many other files. Being disciplined and patient allow me to save over $1 million in total assets. And you can check out this video about how ordinary people can become self-made millionaires, and I will put that video in the description below. If you're brand new to my channel, my name is Sai and welcome. So you're watching part 1 of the 2-part video series to dive deep into my FIRE checklist and how you can achieve financial independence and retire early. Now, let's talk about the expanded FIRE checklist. And the very first step is to calculate your FIRE number. And this is by far the most important step to get your FIRE started, because for one, your budget will change based on inflation, significant life events, and maybe moving to a new location. And you want to typically break down your expenses into essential, non-essential, and large annual expenses. And I typically break down the essential expenses into the following 5 categories: housing, utilities, groceries, transportation, and insurance. The next category will be your non-essential expenses like subscriptions, dining out, entertainment, celebrations, travel, and more. It's really important to categorize the differences between your needs and wants. And another category most people forget to do is to budget for their large annual expenses. And some examples are your quarterly or semi-annual vehicle maintenance, DMV registration fees, car insurance, annual subscriptions, or anything else that will cost you over $200 for a one-time charge. An example would be to multiply your total expenses by 25 years, and that will give you the FIRE number that you want to be invested in. I also multiply the total annual expenses by 3, and that's the 3 years of emergency fund and cash or bonds we want to have in case of a bear market like you're seeing in 2022. You need to go back to step 1 and calculate your FIRE number at least once a year to adjust for inflation. What my wife and I do is go to our budget spreadsheet and figure out what our total annual expenses are at the end of every year. And the personalized budget is only created for private clients, and you can visit my website at firesidechat.com/coaching if that's something you're interested in signing up. Step 2 of the FIRE checklist is to save for your emergency fund, but only up to your deductibles. And this step is more about saving for your rainy day fund, not saving 3 to 6 months of your expenses in case of unemployment. A rainy day fund should only be used when it's unexpected and urgently necessary. It's when you need the cash right away to, let's say you have a blown tire and you need $200 to buy and replace a new tire. And you should also ask yourselves, How much would it cost you to fly home in case of a family emergency? When my grandparents recently passed away 8 months apart from each other, I had the rainy day fund to cover my flights. How much would you need to pay out of your own expenses or your own pocket for the insurance deductible after you get into a car accident? A typical car insurance deductible is about $500 for each claim you make with your car insurance. How much money would you need to set aside for a medical emergency? The average medical deductible depends on your coverage, and if you have serious health issues and you have frequent doctor's visit, then you might need to boost your rainy day fund. And as far as where to park your rainy day fund, you should keep your fund completely separate from your primary checking account. You can find a high yield savings account that can pay you at least 1 to 2% in APY. I wouldn't worry about inflation for the rainy day fund because you need to treat it like a piggy bank that you're only gonna break when poop hits the fan. And I also wouldn't invest or park it in a CD because you need to be able to access this cash when something unexpected and necessary happens to you. I've personally had Ally Bank for several years now, and they have the buckets inside a savings account where you can dedicate parts of your savings to certain expenses. You can also check out Synchrony, SoFi, and Markets by Goldman Sachs, and I am not sponsored by any of these companies or banks. Once you complete step 2, but something unexpected and necessary came up and you had to take cash out of the rainy day fund, you need to pause step 3 and come back to this step to make sure you have enough cash in your rainy day fund before going back to step 3 again. So for example, if you used $500 for car insurance deductible and you're on step 3 or 4 of the FIRE checklist, you need to pause the steps and save $500 again. The typical amount I see from this step is anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000. But again, it depends on your total deductibles and how many people you have in your household. Step 3 of the FIRE checklist is to invest your retirement up to the employer match. And if your employer doesn't offer any match, then you can skip the step and move on to step 4. And according to CNBC, 62% of US employers offer some type of employer match, and having an employer match is basically getting a bonus from your employer. And here are some additional steps you should take to maximize your free money from your employer in 401k, 403b, and TSP. And the employer match also usually comes with the vesting schedule for retainability purposes. You should check with your employer, but I've seen anywhere between 3 and 5 years before you're fully vested. You also need to check to see how much you personally need to contribute to the 401k in order to get the employer match. And the most common matching formula is 50 cents for every dollar contributed by the employee up to 6% of pay. And TSP offers dollar for dollar matching if you contribute 5% of your salary. For example, if you contribute 6% of your $100,000 salary to your 401k, then it's $6,000 every year, right? If the employer matches 50 cents for each dollar you contribute up to 6% of your salary, then you get $3,000 in employer match. And if you get the dollar for dollar match like the TSP with a 5% contribution, then you get another 5% employer contribution of your salary to your retirement. Again, it's free money you should never leave on the table. You should keep in mind that your employer match is in pre-tax dollars and you will pay taxes on them when you retire. However, having the employer match could help your portfolio get even bigger in the long term. For example, if your employer match is consistently, which is very unlikely, at $3,000 a year with a 10% average annual rate of return for the next 20 years, your employer gave you a total of $60,000 and accrue $129,000 in earnings and interest. And you're gonna have roughly $190,000 just from the employer match in 20 years. If you decide to just leave it where it is and let it grow for another 20 years, the employer contribution alone could grow to $1.3 million in 40 years with a total interest of $1.2 million. Now that's the power of compound interest. And step 4 of the FIRE checklist is to pay off your debt except for the mortgage. You have 2 approaches to tackling your debt. You can use the avalanche method or the snowball method. And with the avalanche method, you list your debt from highest interest rates to the lowest interest rates, regardless of the balance. With the snowball method, you list your debt from the smallest balance to the highest balance, regardless of the interest rates. Here's an example of the avalanche method. Let's say you have $15,000 in credit card debt at 20% interest rate and $10,000 in car loan at 4% interest rate, and you have $20,000 in student loan at 7% interest rate. If you're using the avalanche method, you pay off your debt in this order, and your credit card debt with a 20% interest rate, student loan with 7%, and then your car loan at 4%. You can pay off your debt faster this way because you're tackling the highest interest rates first. And if you're using a snowball method to pay off your debt, then you pay off your debt in this order: $10,000 in car loan, $15,000 in credit card debt, and then $20,000 in student loan. When you tackle your debt from the smallest to the largest balance, you're psychologically feeling more accomplished by eliminating one debt at a time. You're going to feel even more motivated to tackle one debt after another. And when I tackle my $110,000 in consumer debt, one of the first steps I took was to significantly reduce my expenses. And I had zero discretionary expenses because I wanted to become debt free. And now, not every one of you has insane debt as I had, but getting rid of the $500 car payment and using that to invest towards early retirement will be much more rewarding. And if you don't have enough cash flow to tackle your debt right now, then you have to find a way to increase your income. And when I was paying off my debt, I had several jobs to eliminate one credit card at a time. You can check out this video about how I paid off $47,000 in credit card debt, making $58,000 a year in 2 years, and I will link that video in the description below. The whole point of tackling your debt in this step is to increase your savings rate. And according to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the average personal savings rate as of May 2022 in the US is 5.4%. And this is income left over after people spend money and pay taxes. And if you truly want to achieve financial independence and retire early, you have to increase your savings rate from the average to 40%, 50%, or even 60%. And you can't achieve that if you have a $500 car payment, $300 student loan payment, or carrying credit card balances month over month with a 20% interest rate. And saving for your future requires you to get out of debt, stay out of debt, and stay disciplined. Your savings rate will always trump your overall investment returns. And step 5 of the FIRE checklist is to max out your emergency fund by saving 3 to 6 months of expenses on top of your rainy day fund. And you already have $1,000 to $2,000 saved from step 2 for your rainy day fund up to your deductibles. And I would just make sure that you have the cash still available for the criteria I mentioned in step 2. When you calculate how much you need to save for your emergency fund, you need to look back at step 1 of the FIRE checklist, and which is to calculate your FIRE number. The only expenses you should calculate are your housing that will keep a roof over your head, utilities that will keep your house running, groceries to keep you and your family fed, transportation to allow you to travel from point A to point B, and insurance like the medical, vehicle, and life that will minimize your exposure to the unknown risks. If you have any additional products and services that you cannot live without, you will list them here. And once you figure out how much it costs to cover 1 month of expenses, the rest is easy for you to calculate. In your primary checking account, I would recommend keeping 1 month of expenses at all times. The reason is most people get paid on a bi-weekly basis and your bills don't necessarily align with your paychecks. And keeping your checking account above water by keeping 1 month of expenses saved will prevent you from paying overdraft fees or going into a negative balance. The rest of your emergency expenses will go into the same high yield savings account where you have your rainy day fund from step 2 of the FIRE checklist. And the whole idea of step 5 is to cover your butt in case of a recession that leads to a higher unemployment rate. You want to have typically anywhere between 3 and 6 months of additional expenses in the high yield savings account, not counting the one you already have in your checking account. The basic rule of thumb is if you're the sole provider for your household, you want to have at least 6 months of expenses saved in case of unemployment. If you're in a dual income household, your spouse makes enough income to cover expenses in case you become unemployed, then I suggest saving at least 3 months of expenses. If you have any upcoming significant life events like getting married, getting a divorce, having a child, or adopting a child, changing your career, moving from one location to another, separating from the military service, or experiencing serious illness or disability, then I would recommend boosting your emergency fund that can cover any large upcoming expenses. Once you complete step 5, the next step is to max out your Roth IRA and HSA, and this is where the true investing journey begins. But I'm gonna talk about steps 6 through 10 in part 2 of this video series. You can watch part 2 on this end card, right? One of these, unless you're watching it as soon as the video is published. So with that said, I appreciate you watching my video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.